My name is Sheryl Evans, and I am the Northern Region Chair for the Ontario Public School Board Association and a trustee for the Algoma District School Board. I am currently situated on Robertson Huron Treaty Territory and the traditional and contemporary lands of Batchewana First Nation, Garden River First Nation, and the traditional gathering places for Métis peoples. We are all treaty peoples. As part of Local Government Week, I'll be highlighting the ways in which OPSPA, our Indigenous Trustees Council, and our member school boards and trustees are advancing reconciliation and supporting Indigenous education. Earlier this year and continuing throughout the year, thousands of young Indigenous children's bodies were located at unmarked graves on the sites of former Indian residential schools. These tragic discoveries were long known to exist amongst Indigenous peoples and survivors of residential schools, and were long ignored by the settler population and the government on these lands. Since that first watershed moment in Kamloops, BC, a growing number of Canadian people have come to realize and understand the importance of educating students about the true history of these lands we call Canada, about the cultures and languages that existed on these lands long before settlers came here and continue to exist in our communities, and the many amazing achievements of Indigenous peoples over time. OPSPA has long believed that comprehensive and inclusive education is the best way for all to move towards a society where the relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians is founded on mutual respect. And that's why we have long supported the calls to action to the final report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The Indigenous Trustees Council is the association's primary advisory body on Indigenous education, providing advice on matters pertaining to Indigenous education programming, curricula, training, and resources. It also facilitates partners with First Nation, Métis, and Inuit organizations. Each year, a range of initiatives are undertaken to support First Nation, Métis, and Inuit education. This year, in the lead up to Canada's first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, the Council called upon the Government of Ontario to make a firm commitment to include Indigenous education leaders in the important efforts to update and correct the kindergarten to grade 12 curriculum. This curriculum update must be co-developed with true collaboration with Indigenous leaders at every stage of the process to ensure that the cultures and perspectives of Indigenous peoples are properly reflected. In addition, we call upon the Premier and relevant ministers to support policy changes that would help address the shortage of Indigenous language teachers, elders, and knowledge keepers in schools in Ontario. As Indigenous leaders like Elaine Johnson, the chair of the Indigenous Trustees Council, have said, we need to make sure that truth and reconciliation is about more than just wearing an orange shirt. We need to be focused on concrete changes in our education system and our communities. Some have said, nothing about us without us. And I say that it's time to learn from Indigenous ways of knowing and doing and shift from the sidelines into the game of truth and reconciliation. Educating ourselves and all of our students, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous, about our shared history is an essential part of the journey towards reconciliation. We all have a role to play, and school board trustees across the province are working to ensure that these important issues remain a priority in our education system and in our communities. Thank you.